That's me doing an air horn to announce that the stream has started. As you can see, I've got an illustration here that I've sort of loosely banged out, and then I'm going to do the Inktober thing of adding some ink. So today's prompt was weak, and after spending a while trying to think of some sort of weak characters, I thought of it more situationally, and I decided it would be interesting to attempt to portray Superman in a state of weakness. Sort of just one of those, I don't know, it feels like something I've seen a million times, but I couldn't really think of a specific cover or moment, but I was thinking of Superman sort of weakened by kryptonite. So that's what I'm attempting tonight. And looks like we've got some folks here. Let's see. We've got Spider Boy. We've got Janice Price, Nippa, Name Pending, J. Andrew World, TARDIS Rider, Unlimited Edge. Let's see. James Gleason. Wow. That is a lot of folks. Mike L. Holy Diver. I actually got here at the beginning. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I've really barely even begun. Gonna just throw in some of my darkest lines, and hopefully I can, show Superman in a state of weakness. That's my goal right now. So I just need to consider exactly how to lay out his cape, but yeah, should be good. That should work. All right. All right. Do I have any questions? Hello to Germ and Atomicus Video, Jesse Marsh, Red. Let's see, Sigamigs, Jack Jones. Yeah. So, what inking pens do you use? Oh, that's a fair question. I had talked about it before. I don't have anything fancy right now. I've basically just got a number of different Pentel and Sakura brushes. Sakura makes these Pigma brush pens in fine, medium, and some sort of like large. I don't go that big with them. And then this Pentel brush pen is like a duo tip thing. It's like a fine, just sort of liner on one end that I don't really use too much, and then a thicker brush here, which I use for a lot of my outlines. Nothing fancy. I wouldn't even say that it's tools that I could honestly recommend. It's probably not what any pro uses, but it's what I'm comfortable with. It's what I'm enjoying. And yeah, I think I got a ways to go before I improve enough to worry too much about exactly which tools I'm using. Chris, what's your take on Mike Wieringo? Oh wow, yeah, he was fantastic. Big fan of Mike Wieringo. It's really too bad we lost him so soon. His work always had an energy to it, a real sort of positive, almost classic comic book feel, even though his execution was honestly something a little unique and new. The way he illustrated strands of hair and stuff felt very original. Yeah, he was wonderful. I loved his Flash and his Fantastic Four, and of course Telos, his creator-owned book. Very talented. Gone far too soon. Far too soon. I'll do Inktober someday, says Unlimited. Well, you know, Inktober is not about necessarily competing with anyone in particular. It's really more of a self challenge to just keep drawing, and that's my goal. I mean, there's been several days where I've not been very happy with the results. I'm definitely trying to be a little more experimental here and there, and I'm giving myself that freedom. Like I'm giving myself permission to say, hey, if it comes down to a decision between what I think will work okay and what could really pay off, I'm gonna try for the payoff. And if it ends up sort of falling flat on its face, so be it. You know, this isn't paid work. This isn't a commission or hired work like on a book. So for Inktober, I think it's just all about giving it a shot and just challenging yourself. Like, what can I do to sort of push my limits, push my boundaries? B. Dan Riley is here. Let's see. Did I miss anybody else? I don't think so. Jenny says that he gets money for Christmas, or she, I'm not sure, sorry. And you're trying to decide on an inking pen. Well, I'll be honest. While pens are fun and they're easy, and I would kind of lean towards recommending getting brushes or quills to practice on those first. I do use those. That is what I learned first, and it is what more professionals tend to use. So, you know, this might be the kind of tools that they may use at like a Comic-Con to just work a little faster, but it doesn't necessarily produce quite the same result. Quite as quality a result, maybe even it could be argued. So, just want to let you have that in mind. Do whatever you want, learn however you want. Just know that these probably aren't the same tools that would be used to create like full comic book pages. They might be used by professionals here and there, but they probably aren't used on monthly comics. Hope that makes sense. Hello, Shirley. Is that Lex Luthor in the background? Yeah, I think it will be. I was definitely going for like something a little different. I almost, well, I was at first inspired by the sort of businessman that John Byrne sort of created for the Man of Steel miniseries in 1986, but I didn't really want to draw him chubby per se. I was like thinking, well, what if he was just sort of like, and this is another thing I sort of pulled from John Byrne's Superman run. What if he maybe even had cancer, so from holding on to too much kryptonite, and he was actually, if anything, kind of skinny. I thought that might be kind of an interesting version to illustrate. So that's what I'm going with. Let's see. Spider-Boy's asking someone to draw a Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I'm not sure. Not quilt pens, Janice. Quills. Hold on. I'm sure I have one here. Let me look. Like I said, quill. Like it could also be called a nib. It's metal. It's like a metal nib, and they come in different sort of widths for different size ink lines, and you dip that into some black India ink, just like you would a brush, and it holds it a little bit. That's a cool thing to experiment with that a lot of artists will use. Really good for cross hatching and fine lines. It can provide a little bit of a stroke depending on how thick the brush is and how good your control gets. I think the brush is a little easier to master, but this is like more affordable. John Byrne first drew Lex Luthor with hair for some reason. Yeah, I remember. Trying to read somebody's thing, but I can't quite make sense of it. Anyway, yeah, let me let me peck away at this a little more, and you know what I'm gonna do is use my technical pen, which is another handy dandy tool to have. This is definitely a tricky angle to illustrate someone at, because you don't see too much of their face, and you certainly don't see it in like the typical angles that you're used to. So I hope I get it right. It's tricky. Chris, I was asking you for a Sam Raimi Spider-Man drawing. Oh, not really taking requests. And if I was, I'd probably be charging for them. So, yeah, it's, yeah, I mean, my time is just pretty darn limited at this point. So, definitely, and when I do draw, I charge for it. So, uh, anyway, yep. I've always said you got to respect yourself as an artist. Even if you're not a professional, you still have to respect yourself and say, this is what my time is worth, you know? So um, never give away something for free that you can do. Um, don't take deals where people offer to pay you in exposure and things like that. And I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, Spider Boy, just for the record. Just my 2 cents on things. Yeah, if I offered to give one person in the chat a free illustration, I'd have to honor like every request, and I just have no idea when I'd ever have the time to meet something like that. Yeah, I can't even do it for like everybody in my Patreon, and they're financially supporting me in a lot of ways. So, would be lovely to be that friendly, but yeah, sorry. If you're good at yeah, Germ has a quote from Dark Knight. If you're good at something, never do it for free. That was Joker, right? I'm pretty sure. But it's true. That's why Joker works. Some of the stuff he said in that movie was like actual, it made sense. A bunch of soldiers die and nobody freaks out because it's all part of the plan. Heath Ledger was so good in that role, man. That was an awesome role. Let's see. Unlimited Edge says, but you don't even have to make a story. For the longest time, I just had that I used to. Okay, I guess I'm getting into the middle of a story because whatever I'm reading isn't making sense to me. I was just trying. Let's see. Brennan B says, do you think you will draw Venom by any chance sometime? If you haven't already. That was actually what I drew the first day of Inktober. So there's a playlist, and that's what I drew on day one, actually. The prompt word, I believe, was poison or poisonous, and it made me think of Venom. So I drew Venom. Not that he himself actually is poisonous, but the word certainly implies it. So just laying in some blacks real quick, and then I can jump right back into the chat, see if anybody's got any suggestions for a topic that I should discuss right now during the stream, or if they've got a question that'll prompt me to tell a story. I'm trying to think of like what I would talk about. Now let me give it some more thought. Hopefully something pops into my head and makes sense. Speaking of, have you read the old Batman story Venom, which contains the origin of the drug? Yes. If I'm not mistaken, that might have been from Legends of the Dark Knight. It's hard to remember now. Shirley says, I was just going to ask you to move the pen. Yeah, I know. I cover up my drawings a lot. Do you critique art? Not really. I mean, like, I guess if somebody was standing next to me and asked for my opinion, I'd be honest. But, no, I mean, I've never been set up to do, like, portfolio reviews like an editor or a, what do you call it, like a, another artist or something like that. I've never set myself up to do that stuff. I have opinions, but I sort of feel like, unless you're like a published mainstream professional, or just published professional, shouldn't like say mainstream. I shouldn't qualify it like that, which I guess I have been. I don't know. It just feels like it would be arrogant of me to critique others. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Maybe it wouldn't. I just feel like I'm keenly aware of my own limitations. You know, I'm not Jim Lee or something. You're all out there going like, that's a pretty dated poll there for a reference. Jim Lee. I mean, yes, he's still working, but more as an editor at this point, huh? He doesn't draw full issues anymore, maybe a cover or something. When was the last time Jim Lee drew a full issue, actually? Now I'm genuinely curious, like, what has Jim Lee illustrated since, like, All-Star Batman and Robin? That's like the last thing I can think of him working on off the top of my head. Lowell Lucas, would you do a fan art contest on your channel? Probably don't have enough followers to really make that too much of see you Shirley, too much of a thing. Maybe down the road. But I also don't like want to necessarily see if I make it a contest, I feel like I'm potentially exploiting artists, like saying like, hey, you provide the art and I'll make an episode about it. Like I don't want to feel like I'm just taking from an artist without like possibility of a reward or something. Like contributing fan art is to the channel in general is one thing, but I'm not like asking people to draw something amazing. And yeah. Maybe asking for fan art on my channel is problematic long term. I wouldn't want people to think that like I'm asking for people's hard-earned labor without like compensating them fairly. But that is why I call it fan art, and I only really show it at the tail end of the show. It's not the draw in any way. It's just that like if you want to sort of be on the show, I'm trying to give you a method to do that, but I'm not telling you to do it. I gotta think this one through now. Detective Comics 1000. Dylan Kent said, I just wanted to say congratulations on the explosive growth in recent months. It's well deserved, and you are now my go-to source for comic book minutia. Django Fett says, nah, man, the way you're doing it is fine. Don't worry about it. I won't for now. It's very important, like, to me, how I couch that, how I phrase it, because if you're telling people, like, show me your art and I'm going to pay you back in exposure, well, I don't think that's fair. If you're, but if you want to somehow be on the show, this is the only method I can really come up with. And I'm not asking anybody to even be a professional artist. It's just if you wanted to sort of essentially get a shout out or something like that, just draw something. It doesn't have to be big or elaborate or even good. When it is, that's awesome. But yeah, I just want to make that clear that I don't want to, like, tell people that they have to or anything. Oh, I'm exhausted. Today is day 5 of a 5-day work week, which I know is typical for most people. Just my job is definitely tiring, and it's an abnormal schedule. So I'm very, very much looking forward to getting a little time off. That said, it's really not relaxation time. Like, I don't think I'm going to have time to go to the movies or play a video game. I've got to make the next episode of Comic Tropes. I've got to record that, and I've got to get done all the sort of chores that you have to do when you've got time off. I've got to do laundry and get a haircut and clean the house. But I think I'll at least allow myself to sleep in a little tomorrow, and then I'll start my day with the live stream tomorrow. So tomorrow's live stream will definitely be earlier. I know that won't work for everyone, but hopefully it'll give a chance for a bunch of people who haven't maybe been able to make it to some of these later evening live streams, give them a chance to pop in. Not even exactly sure what time, but it'll be there. Please do an episode on Mark Bagley. I will at some point. Hello, Rainy Shack. Did you have a favorite book published by First? That's an interesting question. Not sure if I really did. By First. Nothing like really stands out to me as especially memorable off the top of my head. J. Andrew. Very interesting question, but yeah, a lot of those sort of smaller indie publishers in the mid-'80s and stuff that tried to do superheroes, I don't remember too many of their books as something I was a big fan of. I definitely tried a lot of it, and I respected the ideas behind it and the art behind a lot of it, but I wouldn't say that I was like a fan in some sort of ongoing capacity of, you know, I don't know, E-Man or whatever. What else have I talked about lately? Like Howard Chaykin's American Flag or something like that. I wasn't really a huge fan. I respected some of it, but I wasn't a huge fan. Interesting question. Richard, wow. Richard with a super chat. That's really kind of you. That's really helpful. Just thank you so much. That's very, very generous of you. Definitely not expected, but also definitely appreciated. So thank you, sincerely. And just know that I'm not like spending my money on frivolous things these days, folks. I'm doing my best to just pay my bills, take care of my pets and myself and my fiance, and you know, keep the Comic Tropes show going. I would love to get some new equipment at some point. At some point it'll be kind of necessary, but doing all right for now. And I really just got to take care of my ongoing bills, and once I'm in a more stable place, I'll be investing a lot more in the show. There's definitely some I don't want it to stay stagnant. I want it to continue to look and sound better, and I want it to evolve in terms of what I'm able to cover. And I do think it will. I think that there will be some positive changes over time. So thanks again, Richard. Um, would you like some first comics recommendations? Yeah, sure. If you've got something that you like, I think it's always fair to recommend it into the chat room. I think that there's plenty of people, not just that are here right now, but this episode will be archived, and you never know if someone will find it interesting later. Rainy Shack says, "Gotta do my atom model project, but I'm gonna keep this on in the background because I like Chris." Well, thank you. I like that. People are talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. I liked Homecoming. I liked Homecoming quite a bit. I was, it told a little bit of a different story than we've seen with Spider-Man in the movies. And Vulture, somebody that I never considered an especially compelling villain, ended up being one of the best, in my opinion, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe villains. He was very grounded. His motivations were completely understandable. He was compelling. He was well-rounded, and he was legit dangerous and scary. Richard, you don't have to give me a second super chat, but okay, what did I study in college? My major was business with a focus in marketing. Marketing was what I got my degree in, and that's what I've always done until recently for my movies. Spider-Boy thinks that Homecoming was very inaccurate to the comics. I don't think it was very inaccurate. I think that it wasn't a completely literal adaptation of any particular story, but at the same time, I've kind of seen those stories. So if they want to sort of keep the spirit of who Peter Parker is intact, keep his origin, his look, his supporting cast fairly intact, then I'm going to give them a lot of credit for that. I think tone is important. I think the theme and character arcs are important. And I think that they pulled from many different sources. So it worked for me. But obviously people are going to have different interpretations. But yeah, I think that overall it worked very well for me. I was a big fan of the Sam Raimi versions. Not gonna lie, I don't think that 3 was perfect, but I've said it before that I thought that it wrapped up the story that it was telling in a fairly satisfying way. Yeah. We're getting there. We're starting to get a little bit of a sense of where this drawing's going. Opinions. Yep. Let's see. BD and Riley, and let's see. Foof is here. I don't think I said hello to Foof. It's nice to see you. Every hairy goblin is so funny. Yeah, that's true. BD and Riley says, where do people think is the least accurate to the comics? Age of Ultron. Oh, which of the Marvel movies is least accurate to the comics? Age of Ultron comes to mind. Ultron's in it. That's about it. I thought that while Ultron's motivation, origin was, of course, slightly changed by having, mostly Tony Stark create him instead of Hank Pym. I don't think that necessarily matters all that much. I thought that Ultron's motivation was entirely the same, feeling that his way of making the world a better place would be to simply eliminate humanity. That was, and his look and his drones and his goals. I thought that those were very accurate to the versions of Ultron that we've always seen in the Avengers comics. Um, it wasn't really following one specific story, I suppose, but and it was probably trying to do a little too much also. But I thought that Ultron himself like looked and sounded great, and that his motivations were accurate. Not that that's not to say that Age of Ultron is my favorite of the movies. It's definitely middle, and it's the bottom of the middle, or the top of the worst, somewhere in there. You know, it's 2/3 of the way down my personal list. But I didn't think it was. I don't think Ultron himself was that bad. But yeah, people are talking about inaccurate. You know, none of them are really adapting just one specific comic story arc. They're all sort of blending things. But I do think that in terms of an adaptation, I don't need a literal one. I've got the comics for that. Like, that wouldn't be a surprise if they just literally sort of read what's been done in the comics. So I do need a change to make it work. And if they're going to do that, then, you know, I just want the spirit of the character to be the same. I want them to have the right motivations. I want them to have the right, you know, sort of character wants and fears and motivations and desires. That's what's important to me, is the spirit of each character. I mean, we already sort of have this idea that it's all real and in, you know, just a parallel universe, right? So let it sort of be whatever it wants. It's the movies are essentially a what if, to refer back to my latest episode. Oh, okay. People still talking about the movies. Okay. Logan was a really good example of capturing the spirit without repetition. Yeah, that was more or less completely original. It just cribbed the loosest idea possible of an older Wolverine going on a type of road trip. And that's about it. I think it was an improvement, honestly. Have I read Berserk? No, actually, I haven't read that. I've definitely heard plenty of good things. It looks like cool art, but I haven't read it. Let's see, Brennan B is here and says, it's kind of old news, but still, do you think the movies will really suck now? What movies? Michael Callingblast joins, and also, I guess, doesn't like Spider-Man in the Marvel movies. That's fair. Okay, a bunch of folks. Does someone like the new Star Wars movies? Yeah, me. Man, especially the last one. What was it? The Last Jedi. I like that one a lot. I like that one a lot. I thought that was interesting to sort of show. Hey, what if the main characters sort of failed? What if they screwed up so bad that they each in a way failed? Like, how would they pick themselves up and you know, come back? Because I do think that that's heroic, to go through a failure and then still have the courage to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and keep going. So that's what I got out of that movie. I liked it. All right. Grimjack, sure. L.S. Krieger says, "Will you be doing a DC Elseworlds titles as a topic?" Maybe someday. I would probably talk about more of a specific one though, because What If has a sort of specific premise. You know, one key event changes the entire timeline, and that could kind of go in about like 4 different directions very often. But Elseworlds is just completely reimagining the context of a superhero. Uh, you know, really putting them in a completely different environment and seeing what kind of a story is told with those characters. So that's kind of different. And so if I did an Elseworlds, it would very likely just be about a very specific Elseworlds book. In which case I would more likely be talking about the creator and what their goals were. Hopefully that makes sense. Guy Fella says, "Red Letter Media decides my opinions." See, I love Red Letter Media. Those guys are funny, and a lot of times I like their critiques. I don't always agree with them though. They hated Last Jedi, and it works for me. I thought it was good, so I don't always agree with them, but I like their show a lot. Sand Sanity says, "Trying to figure out what was so bad about it." I don't know which one now you're talking about. Mike L says, "I'll never read the word protagonist the same way." The only issue I honestly have with Red Letter Media is that, first of all, I never mind if I have a disagreement on our opinions, because that's fine. Like, I value a different opinion. It may allow me to re-examine or recontextualize something I've seen. So I never really mind if people just have a difference of opinion. Um, but when they do those really long episodes breaking down Star Wars, I thought that the very first one they did on The Phantom Menace was pretty fantastic, because it was a different type of criticism. We hadn't really seen it presented in that way. And I thought that they backed up all of their points very, very well. But after that, even though they're backing up their points and doing a very funny presentation, I sort of, it's sort of like, how important is it to break down that these things are bad? Or it's also like, obviously a lot of people do like those movies. I don't really care for the prequels, but a lot of people do. And at a certain point, like, does it make sense for me to keep criticizing them, to keep saying they're bad, they're bad, they're bad? Or, like, I feel like Red Letter Media made a fantastic point in that first series of videos on The Phantom Menace, and that their argument never necessarily got more clever or significantly funnier after that. And instead, it sort of almost acts like gatekeepers that are saying, like, oh, you really shouldn't like this thing. Anyway, did you hate Spider-Man One More Day? I did. I did. I did. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There are things that I don't like, and I'm going to be honest and explain why I don't like them. I just don't want to. I don't want to harp on it forever. I want to make my point, move on to something else, because I've made that point, and it's up to you whether you agree or disagree. At that point, that's on you. But I'm not going to, like, you're not going to see me sort of picking out every Spider-Man story with those creators and saying, like, and then here's what they did wrong in this issue, because I've made my argument, and it's up to you at that point whether to agree or disagree. But I'm not going to keep making a variation of that same argument. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. I fully give myself permission to be a little wrong here because I am exhausted. I am completely tired, and I'm not as witty or quick-witted about anything right now. So it's 100% possible that I'm not making sense. What is your thought on the John Byrne Superman run? I would say that I really liked it in 86, 87. You know, as a young kid and as a teenager, I really, really liked it. I think that overall, a lot of it does hold up quite well. A lot of it does. I think most of the art is very, very good. I've since sort of become used to some of John Byrne's personal artistic tropes, and there's one or two things he does that bug me just in terms of seeing a similar, like, surprised face. It kind of always looks a certain way, and I don't love when he has people stand completely flat on the border. For me, that sort of breaks me out slightly of reading the comic book because I'm keenly aware of the panel border at that point instead of it sort of just being an invisible thing that breaks up time for me visually. I'm very keenly aware of, like, oh, look at all these characters standing on the panel. That might not bother other people nearly as much. That could purely be a pet peeve, but it does bother me. So there's a few artistic things, but overall I do think his art was close to its peak back then. I think his absolute best was probably around Dark Phoenix Saga with Terry Austin as his inker. But his Man of Steel and Superman run are very good. I think he has a lot of good ideas in terms of, like, sort of slightly depowering Superman. I really liked the idea that his version of Superman was in a birthing matrix but wasn't truly born until that opened on Earth, making him literally, like, you know, even though he's an immigrant, like, he was born in America. And I liked that, actually. I thought that was interesting. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it was a cool little wrinkle to Superman's origin. I liked that quite a bit. And then I didn't love what he did with Lex Luthor, actually. I did think that his version of Lex Luthor was essentially the Kingpin from Spider-Man and Daredevil. I mean, he was a little richer and maybe a little more scientifically minded, but he certainly wasn't, like, initially anyway, portrayed as, like, you know, the genius mad scientist. He was portrayed as a dude that wanted, I don't know, like, just was, like, all about money and power and stuff like that, and he was a criminal, hiding it through, like, legitimate business. I did think he and he ends up wearing, like, business suits and becoming bald and kind of pudgy. So I thought he was a little too close to Kingpin. But that's my take. So I didn't love what he did with Lex Luthor, but I did like most of the supporting cast and the other villains and stuff. I think it was overall a really cool time for Superman. I think Superman looked cool. His adventures became a little more grounded, a little more relatable for a while. There was a lot to like there. EC Imhunde says, would you argue that J. Michael Straczynski's run on Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man run post-Stan Lee? No, actually, I'm sorry. I didn't really care for J. Michael Straczynski's take. It was a little too mystical for me. Not bad, but just not really where I find Spider-Man working best. There was a lot of magic and mysticism, and just didn't quite work for me. So no, personally, I wouldn't argue that was the best run. if I had to argue for a best run post Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, I'd probably give it to David Michelinie. I mean, stuff like Craven's Last Hunt and, you know, the initial appearances of Venom, and I think that that was overall a pretty strong era for Spider-Man. And personally, I also really liked a lot of Dan Slott's stuff. So Dan Slott would be way up there for me. What do you recommend for someone breaking into the Fantastic Four? Definitely start with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's stuff. It's so good. It's so good. Especially like right around the time, like in the issue like sort of 40s up through like 50, when you've got like the Inhumans and Black Panther and Galactus and Silver Surfer. That is a fantastic period for Fantastic Four, for at least sort of understanding how they work thematically. John Byrne's run like gives the characters a lot more depth, makes them very appealing. And then I'm a big fan of Walt Simonson's run. That was pretty good. What else was a really good Fantastic Four run? I don't know. Those are several. It's too bad because he had made Superman popular again. Okay, I'm catching only the tail end of an argument there. Being close to Halloween and all, have you seen the trailer for the Halloween sequel coming out? Yeah, I'll probably go see it. Big fan of horror here, so looks like an interesting take on things. I'm definitely in. I hope it's good, but I see some real crappy real crappy horror movies. So when something big like that comes along, I better at least give it a try. Yeah, I'll watch anything horror. And I think a lot of it is like just a response to sort of like growing up, my mother was like, no, you can't watch any horror. It's far too terrifying and stuff. So like what I imagined in my mind was that all horror was like viciously realistic and like really convincing and hard to take. So when I sort of discovered that stuff like Friday the 13th and that were honestly like a little goofy, I just fell for it. I was like, oh, this is totally enjoyable. This isn't necessarily all that scary. And that made me sort of start searching out stuff that was scary. And then I started finding like really well done stuff like The Shining and Alien and Jaws, I'd argue, is horror. So yeah. Am I a fan of horror games? That's an interesting question. I guess I can't quite claim to be a fan of horror games, although I have, I think, played all the Resident Evil games, and I like them. And what else? I played one or two others. I think I played the first two Dead Space games, and that was pretty good. I'm looking at the drawing right now, and for no reason I hear the John Cena theme in my head. That's Creeper 351. Man, whenever I think of John Cena, I think of that like I don't know what show this was from. It was from some radio show, and they keep prank calling the same lady, and like just telling her that like it turns into like an ad for like John Cena is coming to her hometown to like wrestle, and she just keeps getting annoyed and being like, I'm not interested. And then they start like tricking her by like pretending it's like, you know, a call for a different product, and then all of a sudden just go like, you know, well, if you don't want to get your reduced cable with us, then you'll never be able to see John Cena. It's a pretty good classic one. Rainbow Six Siege is a horror game. Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, I've seen Final Girls, Raul Julia. That one's not too bad. It's pretty good. A little more of a comedy. I think it was only a PG-13. It doesn't get super scary, but you know what? You know what's good, sort of similar, was I really liked Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Like the first 2/3 of that movie is like a documentary about a guy that wants to become a great serial killer, and then it like sort of transitions into an actual horror movie at a certain point. It like breaks out of the viewpoint of being a documentary and just becomes a flat out movie. I liked that movie a lot. I thought that one was really good. and it's got this sort of meta commentary on what works in horror, and then it sort of plays on what everything it established. Yeah, it's pretty good. It gets a recommend from me anyway. Feel like I'm working kind of slow tonight, so that's probably just a product of being on the tired side. I just feel like I'm drawing really, really slowly. Silent Hill. Oh, I played at least one of the Silent Hill games. I want to say Silent Hill 2. That one wasn't too bad. B. Dan Riley likes the Resident Evil games. Yeah, I do too. Hunter Iggy says, what are my thoughts on the James Gunn Suicide Squad ploy to get his job back from Marvel? I don't know that that's really the ploy. I think he's just looking for his next job, and DC's just happy to hire him. Or really Warner Brothers, I should say. That's my suspicion. I don't think Marvel will admit any wrongdoing and take him back. They might still use his script. I hope that they do, because I would, and even if it may need some editing, who knows like how good it was. I just think that James would sort of know those characters and what direction everything's sort of being aimed, so I'd want them to follow that idea. There's some sort of a dog off in the distance just making a really strange sort of barking sound. Hope the little pup's okay. Can't really tell exactly where it's coming from. Just somewhere out there. Chris, that's looking great. Well, that's kind of you, Lawrence. Here, I feel like if this was just a little closer, everybody could see everything better. It kind of fades, doesn't it, there? Foof says, makes me so angry that Konami killed Silent Hills with Junji Ito, Hideo Kojima, and Guillermo del Toro. Wow. That would have been good, huh? That does sound cool. Are those the people that were like working on like what? Is that just a video game like sequel, or was it like going to be a movie or something? Because that sounds dope. Alright, in a minute I'm going to start worrying about this dog if it keeps making those strange barking sounds. As long as it is a dog, I guess it's possible that what I'm hearing is so weird that it's something else. Favorite Superman movie? I guess the first one from the 70s. It's not perfect, but I guess it's the best. Two isn't bad. Anybody gonna go to the mall tomorrow? Does anybody actually just go hang out at the mall anymore? I'm serious. Like, I wonder if that's something teenagers still do. I almost took for granted that it's still a thing, but maybe it's not. I go to the mall every weekend, says Sigamigs. All right. Spencer Noggle says, I did when I lived near one. Germ says that he does out of boredom. B. Dan Riley says all day, every day. Okay, so plenty of people do still go to the mall. All right. It's Wednesday tomorrow. I got school. No mall for me. Okay. If I hung out at the mall, I'd probably be labeled a pedo. Okay. Spider-Boy says, nope, I, a teenager, can confirm we don't. Okay. Magnus Robot Fighter, says TikTok. Not sure what that means. This isn't. This is, I haven't, like, really finished it yet, but this is going to be Superman. He's a fairly famous superhero. Few folks know him. What's the best gossip you guys have heard lately? Have you heard any gossip about some of your coworkers dating, or some of the kids at your school cheating on a test? What's the latest gossip you've heard? Give me some juicy, juicy gossip. Because one thing you don't know about me is that comics are fine. They're fine. But what I really like is gossip. In fact, they call me Gossip Gary. Is the audio quiet for anyone else? Yeah, it's quiet for everyone else, Spencer. This mic ain't the best. It's what it is. So you're going to have to crank it up or put on some headphones until I'm rich enough to buy a great microphone. And at that point, oh baby, you better hold on to something, because the audio is just going to go, and you're going to go, woo! Can I please call you Gossip Girl instead? No, I'll stay with Chris. Gossip tropes. Everybody says gossip tropes. Okay. Ooh, Victoria said I was cute, but I said before that, I said be gone, taught, and ran away. That's all the gossip I got. Okay, that's some juicy gossip. Ooh, we got some juicy gossip from Rainy Shack, everybody. Ooh, that's some good, juicy. That stuff, just drink it up. It's juice. Oh, what is this, Mountain Dew? No, this is gossip. The juiciest gossip that I've heard lately is that Superman had to stop hanging out at the malls because Lex Luthor had him named a pedo. There you go. Don't hang out at the mall. Yeah, that's going to be kryptonite in his hand. I'm still sort of drawing that. I took a break in that area. Let me work on that a little. Yeah, this is my version of Lex Luthor holding a big hunk of kryptonite. Take that, Superman. Not so super now, are you? Luther, you fiend, if I don't get my powers back, everyone on that bridge will die. Yes, and they'll blame you for it, Superman. I'm just making shit up. Guy fella says, oh, that's not Ashens? Okay, I don't know what I missed there. Sigmund said something about a Sears closing. Germ's talking about knowing is half the battle. So everybody's on a completely different page at this point. We're all having our individual conversations. Not so much the need talking to each other. You know how it is. Looks like some new folks here. I see Smirched Hatter is here. Hello. People can be put back together. It just depends on who's doing it. Okay. Have you seen Death Stranding's trailers? They're weird and horrifying, and it has Mads Mikkelsen. No, I haven't seen that, but I'm curious. You got us in the mood for hanging out at the mall and gossiping. Yeah, come on, bros. Come on, bros. Let's get to the mall and do some gossiping. Yo, I don't know if you heard. I heard the mall is cool. Oh, let's go to the mall. It's so cool there. Woo! Well, when I was growing up, when I was a young teenager, there wasn't a lot to do. And so as soon as we could, like, get rides from our parents, you know, like we'd hang out on the weekends, basically we just try to get dropped off at the mall, because that would be at least like a few hours of just sort of like hanging out at the food court and just sort of like mostly window shopping. It's not like we had lots of money at that age, but yeah, there wasn't a lot to do, and we spent a lot of time at the malls when I was a kid. There just wasn't, I wasn't like in the middle of the city, so there wasn't a lot to do. Sometimes we'd also take like the bus and then the T, that's what we call the subway in Boston. We'd take that into the city, so that was fun. That was always cool. That was dope. Yeah, just something we did. Who played the best Superman? Kirk Allen, George Reeves, Christopher Reeve, Dean Cain, Tom Welling, or Henry Cavill? Who did the best? Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve. He was completely convincing when he would be Clark Kent and then Superman. Like, you really believed that he didn't really need much more than a pair of glasses and a different stance to trick people. I thought that he was very convincing with that. I think that you forgot Brandon Routh, by the way. I think Henry Cavill easily could have done a great job as Superman, and I just sincerely don't think he had the material to ever support that across 3 different attempts. I just don't think he really played any sort of recognizable version of Superman. To me, I didn't think he was recognizable as Superman. I have some gossip. This is Pathetic Spider Boy. Says, this one chick saw my friend outside of school, and she said she looked bad, and like an idiot, he said yeah, and got confused when she smacked him. Ooh, that sounds like some top-notch goss. That's my slang for gossip. You can all start taking that. Some top-notch goss. Ooh, that's some top-notch goss. That's some good goss. Y'all like some of that goss? Well, I got some top-notch versions of it here for sale. My top-notch goss don't come free, honey boo boo bear. Ooh, you're gonna need to pay for my hot goss. Hot goss. That's some good goss. All right, questions. I thought Ryan was some top-notch goss. You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. Let's see. What if it was possible to bring drawings to life? What if? Then I guess you'd end up with a crappy movie like Cool World. That didn't really do much for me. I'd argue that nothing that exciting happens. What was that one movie that Elvis made, like set in New Orleans? That one was pretty bad. What was it? He just starts the movie going like crawfish, and everyone's like, "Ooh, he can sing," and I'm like, he's just saying crawfish. That's terrible. But I can't remember what that movie was. Crawfish. Watch YouTube demonetize me now for just saying that. Like, I can't even carry a tune. They're going to be like, we noticed that you were trying to make all your money by ripping off the famous Elvis movie from New Orleans that we can't remember. How dare you? Chris, stop with the outdated slang. Yeah. I thought I was the only one who ever saw that movie. No, I've seen all sorts of movies. Marcus Mattingly says, not sure, every Elvis movie was basically the same. Well, that's true. I heard Elvis saying anything put in front of him. It's true, and just listen to him sing the Golden Grahams song. That crawfish song was badass. Well, I don't think it even had any lyrics. I think he just shouted crawfish a bunch of times, and people were like, he's pretty good with that crawfish song. Why, he's going places, he is. He's like, well, I'm going places because I'm singing about them crawfish. I've held a live crawfish before. That's creeper. Oh, cool. I remember Cool World. It was about a comic book artist. It was. And it gets a big fat from me. What can we say? People love they crawfish. People loves they crawfish. Ellis Grieger says, Top Secret was the best Elvis movie. Or maybe Bubba Hotep. Maybe so. Maybe so. Spencer asks, how's Superman going to get out of this? In this particular version, the Flash comes up and beats Lex Luthor half to death. And so Superman's like, thanks? Care Bear says, when I think of Elvis movie songs, I think of Clam Bake. I don't know Clam Bake, but I think it went a little something like this. Well, there's a clam bake that's going on. We're gonna bake them clams all day long. We're gonna clam bake a clam bake. That's how I think it might have gone. That's my best guess. Did I nail it? I think I nailed it. I'm gonna give myself a 10 out of 10. All right. Somebody always rescues Superman before the kryptonite finishes him. Yes. Yes. You've got a point. It's almost like these superheroes never die. It's almost like that. But yeah, something Superman can't get out of, and he needs Lois Lane or Jimmy Olsen or Batman or Perry White or Timmy Tom Tuck, the newspaper boy down the street, to get out of this jam. If you want to see Superman get out of a ridiculous jam, look at my episode where I talk about Krypto the Superdog. That one is pretty weird. I'll just give you a small heads up there. It's pretty weird. A clam bake. Mall-worthy performance, Chris. Thank you. Enough of this drawing stuff. Enough talking about comic books. I'm going straight to the mall and I'm going to sing about clam bakes, and then I'll just rake in that beautiful lira. Ooh, those sweet ducats. I can practically taste them. You all taste your money, right? That's what I do. I always go, it's real. If you bite through, and you can bite through, then it's candy. I learned that the hard way. The Running Man is great. Okay. I find Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Verse strangely attractive. Is that weird? No, you're supposed to. I watched Krypto the Superdog when I was little. It was a weird show. Yes, it probably was. I was speaking about my episode about an issue of Superboy that features Krypto, but I'm sure you're 100% right that show was strange. Clam bake. Well, bake my britches and bust my soul. It's clam bake and we're on a roll. We're gonna put those clams in the sauce. We're gonna clean clams and eat them for dinner. I think that's how the song goes. What? $5 from B. Dan Riley? What did I do to deserve this? I don't know. Guess I'll never know. Wait, I've got an idea. I'll actually read his super chat and it might give me a clue. B. Dan Riley says, this mall running gag is just too good. Yeah, I nailed it tonight. I nailed it. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very kind of you. Drawfiend says, first time catching one of these streams on time. Really digging the black and white contrast. I was actually thinking of potentially coloring this with Copics, but maybe I should instead either not, or I could do what I've sort of been doing lately, which is just sort of give it like a gray wash. Hello, Philip Flores. Somebody said hello to me. I say hello back, because I was taught manners. Assholes. Alright, on a serious note, Summer Kisses, Winter Tears is a good Hollywood Elvis tune. Alright, fair enough. I don't think I know that one. $5 will get you a delicious Orange Julius. Oh, Orange Julius's! Those were good! Oh man, I haven't had one of those in forever. Do they still have Orange Julius's at the mall, I wonder? You know, I go to the mall so infrequently, I really sincerely don't know if Orange Julius is still around. Oh man. Color it and show us in tomorrow's episode. Well, folks, if I don't color it right now, I'm falling asleep for real. And then I'm going to just start tomorrow. But you know what? I got a minute, so you know you can keep asking questions. I'm going to take a look at what the prompt for tomorrow is. Let's see here. What do we have for a prompt? What we have here is a prompt, and we're going to get prompt with it. Tomorrow's is angular. Angular. Here, I'll zoom in there. Today's is weak, tomorrow's is angular. Well, there's plenty of angular things that we could do. Of course, somebody like The Thing or Iceman could be argued to be angular. You could say angular is like something like a transformer, But I've done some of these. Let's see. You can find Orange Julius and Dairy Queens now? Wow, that's interesting. Angular. Angular. Well, you know what? I guess now that I'm thinking of it, like I'm thinking of people and characters, but I could also do an object that's angular. You know, I could draw a car or a building. Be said to be angular. I could draw a sci-fi vehicle like a spaceship. Those are angular. So, all right, I've got a bunch of ideas here. Wonder Woman had a villain called the Angleman. Oh, did she? Scarlet Witch's weird mask. That's an interesting idea. Angular, the shadow and his shadow at an angle. Yup, that's the angle of the dangle. I like that. Oh, Creeper says angular fish. So I'll combine those and I'll have an angular fish with his dick out. Captain Boomerang. Captain Boomerang. Maybe. Yeah. Transformers Alt Mode. The Cosmic Cube is angular. Quicksilver's Speed Lines. Mr. Nobody. Ha Ha. Not sure who Ha Ha is. Yeah, anyway, that gives us a few ideas to play with. Good thinking, folks. Let's do one thing here. I'm gonna at least color the kryptonite. I just feel like it needs to be done. So, there. There's at least his kryptonite. Just don't do SpongeBob. No, I didn't really think about that one. Dark side I-beams. Yeah, those are angular. That's a kind of fun idea. Captain Boomerang throwing angular fish. Okay, well at that point, why don't I just draw... Oh, the name just left my head. I was thinking of the Muppet that throws boomerang fish. He's like, "Yay, how about I do my boomerang fish tonight?" I don't know how his voice went now that I think of it. I don't remember his name either. But that'll do it, I think. I think I did my drawing for the day. I like the monocolor choice. You did Lex's legs as well as Rob Liefeld. You know what? I know it's unfair, but if I were to draw them, you know, like it literally would have gone like out here, and you know, maybe his foot would be something like that. And I just realized that I had to put his cape in, and I don't know. I just realized that that's just how it was drawn. I mean, I guess I could have had him standing like this, but I think for him to be balanced, his two legs would be here, and that's just how I laid it out with the space that I had available. No, not the Swedish Chef. Not the Swedish Chef. New Zealand. New Zealand, that's it. Somebody suggested the electric gremlin. Well, I don't know if I want to draw the electric gremlin, but maybe I do want to draw a gremlin one of these days, so that's kind of a fun suggestion. Thanks for throwing that out. I like the Gremlins movies. Both of them. They're a little different. First one's a little more of a sort of light horror adventure type movie, and then the second one's kind of a comedy parody, and I like that. It worked for me anyway. Alright, so I'm going to just erase some of this pencil junk. This pencil junk always getting in the way. Why do I even do it? Why do I even do it? And I mean, I'm basically done with my illustration. I feel like it doesn't really have the depth that I want it to. And I'm tempted to lay down gray Copics like I've been doing. I feel like laying down the gray ones like has really helped me sort of spot the areas that I would shade if I did it in full color. It's also just sort of fun and easy, so kind of like that. Halloween Michael Myers knife. No red shorts for Superman. No, you know what? I do love the red shorts. Give me 2 seconds. Let's see. I can still add that because of it being spandex. Let's see. Do it more like... Yeah. That's a totally fair point and request. Let's throw on some trunks. Yeah. Totally fair task for those. I do tend to prefer the trunks. I honestly had just sort of not thought about it, but look at that. Because I haven't drawn too much of the Superman, I can just, with a line or two, give him pants. And I know a couple of you had said something. I just wasn't, I just sort of kept forgetting. It's an Inktober miracle. It is. It is. Why? Well, what do you know? Old man Potter said that nobody'd be getting those lovely shorts this year. Well, I showed him, by golly. Oh, Mary. Oh, Mary, I got... You'd never believe it. I got all the shorts for everybody in the whole town. I tell you, it's a Christmas miracle. So everyone's going to ignore his missing mullet? Yes. Yes, we're definitely ignoring that. You're not getting a mullet out of me on this. Nice try. So that Venom movie's actually doing pretty darn well. Seems like a bunch of people actually like it. I haven't seen it. I'd heard that it wasn't so good, at least from a bunch of folks that were in here. I said, like, hey, who went to see it? What did they think? And consensus seemed to be that they didn't like it, but obviously mainstream audiences are like, no, it's fine. So I'm sure that we'll get another Venom movie at this point. I mean, 2 weeks in a row in the #1 spot is kind of hard to do these days. So I think that we're getting another, folks. It's so-so. Average bunch of people seeing it is younger than any other superhero movie. That's interesting. Huh. I wonder what the appeal there is. What could that be? Maybe it just looks edgy enough, but you know, to sort of appeal to that younger teenage crowd. Well, that's okay. I mean, they deserve movies too, I suppose. Not everything is aimed at me, and I'm okay with that because plenty is. I am curious though, now that it's doing well. Like, I am kind of curious to see it, and I hadn't been before, but kind of am now. The ending was played for laughs. Let's see. The turds in the wind line is a big, like, no, though. Why did they... Okay, people are, like, just talking spoilers. Why are you guys talking spoilers? Lots of people didn't see it. I didn't see it. Oh, well. Nobody has chill anymore. That line was in the trailer. No, I know that line was in the trailer. Is it true Tom Hardy kisses Venom? I hope so. Jack Elmy says, lots of folks say Venom is trippy and that Tom Hardy's performance is worth it alone. Well, I've said all along, I actually really like Tom Hardy as an actor. And if I went to see it, it would really mostly be just because I like Tom Hardy, not for any other real reason. I think he's a good actor. I think he's very entertaining. Oh, yeah, we're just coloring things with lots of grays. Wrapping together. That's what pays. Usually when I wrap, the super chats just really start rolling in, so maybe I'm just going to turn to pure rap. I'm just going to start freestyling all the time. Y'all just going to have to deal with it as I rap, raparoo. You even like Tom Hardy in Nemesis? No, not really, actually. I just think he's a good actor. I'm not saying that I liked him in everything he's been in. I don't know what was up with the performance he delivered in Nemesis. But you know what? I don't think the director really had a clear idea of what he was trying to do in Star Trek Nemesis. I really don't. I just decided I'd sort of shade in some of the red areas, things like that. Just thought that that would be kind of fun. So I'm doing it. And then I'll probably also shade a couple of the darkest shading areas. Meow. Meow. We're getting close, I think, to what I can reasonably accomplish here. Edna Mole says no capes. What's your favorite Superman origins? You know what was impressive was honestly how condensed it was in All-Star Superman. And then I really did like John Byrne's version in Man of Steel 1986. I think he did a really cool job with that. Giving him just the fact that he grew up without his superpowers. He didn't get them until he was like, a teenager. And then so he sort of grew up a more normal life. He wasn't technically born until he emerged from the Kryptonian birthing matrix when it landed on Earth. There was a lot to like about that version. So yeah. All right. I think that looks a little cooler, maybe. Just throw this in. But yeah. I had fun chatting with everyone tonight. Hope this looks interesting to you. I think that's about everything I'll do on it. And tomorrow is Angular, and I'll be honest, that's a little bit of a stumper, but so is this for a while. I've got some time to think about it. Hopefully I come up with a cool idea tomorrow. I hope that some of you are around tomorrow to ask more clever questions and just have good discussion. Yeah, let's see. Looks like plenty of folks are having their own conversation, which is awesome. And yeah, I forgot the mullet. Well, sorry, Sloth Giraffe, you're not wrong. Russell Duffer says shadows under feet and hands. Fine, sure. I can do that. What do I got here? What do you think? Does that somehow look a little better, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. But that'll do it. What's my favorite Batman story? Year one, probably. Probably. Yeah, I think that'll definitely do it. I feel good about it. It was interesting. Light sources directly above them, more or less. Yeah, more or less. The shadow anchors it. Cool. All right. Well, it was fun to do. I had a good time. I had a good time talking to all of you. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and I think I'm honestly making some improvements based on what I know about my own art. So hopefully that's the goal, right? I'll see you all tomorrow, probably a lot earlier. And until then, I want you to keep reading comics. Take care. Bye.